Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chief Johnson, my state is home to a number of land ports, including Santa Teresa Port of Entry, which is a multimodal transit hub that has been a major site of economic growth in recent years. As Santa Teresa, we're experiencing trucking thefts on the Mexico side of the border, meaning the materials and products businesses and consumers are waiting for never make it into the United States. Chief Johnson, yes or no, do you believe it's important for the U.S. law enforcement to coordinate with Mexican law enforcement?
Absolutely.
The Department of Homeland Security has estimated that cargo theft accounts for up to $35 billion in losses annually. These thefts impact our truckers and railroads, agricultural producers, businesses big and small. They also impact consumer prices, which are currently on the rise. Mr. Howell, yes or no, when the entire industry experiences regular thefts of merchandise, does it affect the prices that consumers see on the shelves?
Senator, yes, it eventually will.
Chief Johnson, you noted the following in your testimony, quote, state level police and prosecution efforts are challenged by a tremendous number of competing priorities for resources, such as addressing the fentanyl epidemic, violent crime in the community. This focus has either directly or indirectly impacted effective property crime enforcement efforts. Criminals have exploited this vulnerability. Do you believe law enforcement needs more resources or less resources to address the full slate of challenges in our community?
Well, certainly local law enforcement needs more resources directed towards this issue. And as we look at the three offender profiles, certainly the transnational organized crime has got the greatest federal nexus. But when you drop down to the criminal street gang profile and the criminal opportunist, those are most directly targeted by local law enforcement efforts and state charges, and certainly having the capacity in communities to be able to address cargo theft-related crimes at a local level with state charges would be tremendously complementary to the federal response that's been discussed today.
So, Chief Johnson, having fewer law enforcement officers could make this worse? Having fewer law enforcement officers at the local level could make this worse?
Absolutely. Currently, IACP has experienced and reported on just a national challenge in recruitment and retention in policing. Surveying our members, we believe that across the nation, many agencies are experiencing a 10 to 15% vacancy rate in terms of positions that they have available but are unfilled. And we need to aggressively, as a complete society, focus on improving the opportunity to recruit and retain police officers into the profession to strengthen the safety and security of our communities.
Appreciate that thorough response. Last week, before the Senate passed its budget resolution, I introduced an amendment to provide increased resources for local law enforcement through such initiatives such as the COPS hiring program. I was surprised when only one of my Republican colleagues voted for it. This is a bipartisan area that we should be working together to make sure that there is more resource available to ensure that we're able to hire, secure, keep, and recruit all the folks that we need. So I appreciate that response. Mr. Blanchard, advanced technology is one of our strongest tools in the fight against drug trafficking, which is why I've long advocated for 100% screening using non-intrusive inspection technology at the southern border. Yes or no, do you believe we should implement NII technology at our land ports of entry?
Yes, sir, I do.
Reports indicate that fentanyl precursor chemicals are being smuggled through the United States transportation networks as well, including through cargo and rail, before making their way to Mexico for fentanyl production. Yes or no, would implementing comprehensive screening of all cargo, both entering and exiting the United States, enhance our ability to detect and disrupt this supply chain?
Senator, we don't do much cross-border freight, but certainly we have always, as an industry, been very supportive of more inspections, so long that it's not overburdensome. And I think without question, the new technology and the technologies that you have mentioned provide increased efficiency with advanced throughput on those inspections. And so I personally, I certainly would not feel comfortable speaking on behalf of my entire industry, but myself and on behalf of my company, we would welcome that. We want to get the bad actors out of our industry, and I think any advanced technologies that would provide assistance to law enforcement in that effort, I would be very supportive of.
I appreciate that response. acknowledging the importance of technology that's not going to slow down commerce, but it's going to let us get a 100% view of what's leaving the country with some of these precursor chemicals that are rolling through the United States and then going to Mexico, or the bad stuff that's coming in. I'm always surprised with the very low number of passenger vehicles that are actually screened entering the United States, and reports coming out of the Department of Homeland Security suggest that 90% of the fentanyl that is being found in the United States is coming through the southern border in passenger vehicles driven by Americans. We've got to stop this stuff, and the only way we're going to be able to stop it is that we can see what's in those vehicles, but make sure that people can also move so we're not hindering commerce. Mr. Blanchard, one final question. The importance of the work that's needed to ensure that we're keeping an eye on the bad folks and that there's actually something being done when it comes to the federal staff, experts, things of that nature, to be able to implement the law, to hold people accountable, to prosecute, things of that nature. Will that require more staff or less staff?
At this time, Senator, I'm not in a position to know whether we would need more or less staff, and let me explain why I say that. The reason I don't know if there is sufficient law enforcement as we sit here today is because there has not been any directive by Congress to assign agencies to look into these cargo thefts and cargo fraud issues. And so I am of the personal belief, Senator, that first we really need Congress to direct these agencies to start investigating these. That's why we have the Safeguard Our Supply Chain Act, to direct these agencies to work in coordination to begin to investigate these claims so that we can start prosecuting and convicting these bad actors out there. Because currently, from what we can tell, they are going essentially without any recourse whatsoever into these criminal activities. And so I certainly believe we should start there, but I think it would be very logical that as we begin that process, that the gravity of this situation and the severity of what we are experiencing in the industry likely would require some additional resources for some of these federal law enforcement agencies in order to be able to tackle this issue.
I appreciate that. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your acknowledgement of many of the ideas that have been shared today alone, in addition to the research staff has done in this space. This is something that Congress needs to get done, and we can work together on this, whether we're looking at just domestic transport or we're looking at international crossings as well. We have to do better in this space. So very much appreciate this hearing that you scheduled. Thank all the panelists for being here today.
Thank you for your questions, Senator. I agree this